cheaper, quicker transportation projects, lower healthcare costs. People like Ezra Klein of the New York Times, Matt Iglesias, the
just great
Substack writer, a lot of people at The Atlantic like Yoni Applebaum.
Me when I'm pitching a brand new style of liberalism that'll definitely work. Ezra Klein and Matt Iglesias. Just, oh no, obviously.
Groups like the Niskanen Center. This is their big thing, and they're making a big push, and they're getting a whole lot of attention in the media and from Democratic donors and elected officials.
Right before I came in here to talk with you, I saw Ezra Klein up on one of the cable networks. Here's the thing. What you're talking about in the piece here, the progressives today, and you kind of laid that out, they're focusing more on removing barriers than actively shaping what economic policy should look like.
Because again, they're just neoliberals. They're just more neoliberal. It's just the same neoliberals. They're just coming up with a new term for it. It's the exact same thing. It's the same thing. But I see people talk. I think it's mostly a meme. It's mostly a buzzword. But let this serve as a broader warning. Don't let liberals take the reins of what is happening here. Don't let liberals be the ones to define for you what went wrong and what needs to happen. These are the same people who think that Bernie Sanders represents a naive, antiquated form of political thought that no longer has a place in DC. Like, these are the same people who think that progressives are at best naive and at worst are just as bad as the MAGA Republicans. These are the people who created the problems that we're experiencing right now, created the conditions, nullified the Democrats so they're unable to do anything about Trump. They're not our friends.
How is this different from Democrats we've seen in the past, from President Clinton, from President Obama, others?
I think it's got some similarities to what you saw in the Clinton administration with...
How is this different from neoliberalism? Well, funny you asked. It actually has a lot in common with neoliberalism. Now, so first of all, I must acknowledge, it's pretty much just...
reinventing government, taking away procedural barriers that keep civil servants from doing their jobs, deregulation of the airline industry and the trucking industry under Jimmy Carter, the financial industry. I think there's a lot of overlap between past Democratic administrations and what these folks are talking about, and that's why they're hitting a nerve. A lot of Democratic donors and elected officials are feeling like the Biden administration was too far left. And
Jesus Christ. Jesus Christ.
That deregulation might be a way forward.
Would you imagine, in your time when you...
By the way, the reason they call this abundance liberalism is because they are cynical and they hate you, and they chose that term to mimic the style of left populist rhetoric. Like they are deliberately dishonest. Yeah, it's a bait and switch. They chose that term because they want some of the clout of the actual left-leaning people who are making arguments in favor of like Medicare for all or whatever, when in reality they're to the right of most Democrats.
Worked with President Clinton, that somebody like Joe Biden would be considered to be too far left, too progressive?
No. And never did I imagine that the editor of the Washington Monthly, a moderate publication, that it favors taking on corporate power and interests and is a little bit suspicious of this whole deregulatory move, would be considered a left-wing guy, because, that's not what the magazine has been. That's not what I was been. But today, our critique of this whole abundance liberal thing is, even if you did everything that they said, it would not move the needle much to bring us more housing, more affordable energy, that we have bigger problems than that. I mean, I think they're right about the reform agenda. They're just very narrow in what they would do. They're kind of afraid to go after the real problem, which is this combination of oligarchic control of the economy meets conservative destruction of the government. That's what we're actually experiencing now. And, getting rid of unnecessary procedures is helpful but not sufficient.
All right, so
there is an element of truth to this. Sean just donated on that. We can hate on neoliberalism, but Ezra Klein's right about this. He's not arguing for unfettered free markets. He's pointing out the Dems' response has often been bad regulation. Horrendous zoning laws is one of the primary reasons we have a shortage of housing, but no one wants to fix it because housing price will crash. That is true, but like the problem with this is that all like these high-minded efforts to address things like bad housing policy will ultimately run up against like a big enemy that abundance liberals are never willing to deal with, and that's corpos. Like at the end of the day, they answer to wealth. You can talk a big game about being willing to really take on the challenges with the housing industry, bring down housing costs, whatever else. Corporations will inflate those housing prices as much as they can get away with. You might be able to do in Austin, Texas, and bring rent down on aggregate 16% over the course of 5 years by building a bunch of new housing. But don't worry, those rents will go right back up. You're fighting an uphill battle against an enemy much more powerful than you, And we're at a boiling point here now, because now the capital class has mobilized so aggressively and so openly and so malevolently against the interests of the average American in the form of this like open oligarchy. It's no longer acceptable to pretend that we can just make marginal tweaks around the edges. You need like a unified front. And I agree, like neoliberals aren't bad because they've never had good policy propositions. As a matter of fact, neoliberals, or I guess liberals broadly, often know more about policy wonkery than leftists do, which has always been a weakness of the left. My issue with them isn't necessarily the policy tweaking. My issue is that all of that policy tweaking is ultimately subservient to a larger class dynamic, which they refuse to fight. You know what I mean? Yes, 100% agree. You can't affect a lot of these changes until you remove big business from policymaking. Yeah, okay. I agree with you completely. But I am willing to acknowledge the importance of like addressing zoning laws. Holy shit, the Abundance Liberal Conference was sponsored by venture capitalists in a created nonprofit. Yeah, sounds about right. The new centrist push to regain control of the Democratic Party. Will Stansel was on Twitter saying he doesn't like this abundance liberal shit. That to me, that's a canary in the coal mine, ain't it? Right there. Like if you have even the big hitter liberals, the big hitter like posters being like, no, I don't think so. You will get the commie blocks and you will thank us for them when we decommodify housing. Here, I want to finish this. I've just seen too much buzz. It's a very online thing, but it's just important to not let these backstabbers get in the way of actual solution making.
So what are some of the policies that you think that they should be pushing towards that maybe they're missing? Because we've heard from the likes of Pete Buttigieg, who had said that he thinks that there's too much focus on identity politics within the party.
Yeah.
Obviously, he's somebody who may have his eyes towards 2028. I mean, what is the current crop of Democrats? What are they missing in this conversation?
Look, 10 to 30% of Americans are self-employed. They are contractors, they're gig workers, they're Uber drivers. Neither party does anything to help those folks, to market to them. They look more and more like America. They are the base of the Democratic Party. The Democrats barely talked about them, and they're being crushed by both a lack of support from welfare, from social.
Didn't Biden's labor or the NLRB, didn't they extend additional protection? No, there was a Biden era push for like the recognition of like Uber drivers as workers rather than contractors. There's been a push for that broadly. Now I agree. The abuse of contractors is a real problem with our economy.
Welfare, they're taxed higher and they don't get the benefits that employees get, and they're being crushed by monopolists and tech platforms that they work for. The average somebody selling products on Amazon has seen their fees go up from 10% to 30%. These people need help. Democrats should be their champions. We need healthcare reform where we can regulate the prices that are paid to conglomerate monopoly healthcare providers that could boost the incomes of the average family $2,000 to $3,000 right off the bat.
This is corporate